We have someone here, Jack in Florida, who has just a straight up syllogism in the notes there. Jack, welcome. How are you?
How's it going, Matt?
It's going well. I'm ready for you. I'm not even going to put a clock on you because you can present your syllogism and I can tell you why it's wrong.
Well, yeah. So let's start with the premise that either propositions are going to be mental properties or they're not going to be mental properties. In the not mental categories, we only have evidence for physical objects being the type of objects that could, occupy the ontology of being propositional. But since I take it that physical objects are tangible and propositions are not, propositions can't be reduced down to physical properties, right? Since we only have evidence for propositions being intentional objects or concepts that are within an agent's mind, we could affirm some sort of conceptualism about propositions. Now, if there are propositions which are necessarily true, and what I mean by necessarily true there is that there are certain propositions that are logically necessary, like all bachelors are unmarried men. That's a proposition that's true in all logically possible worlds. If that's the case, those propositions can't be contained in a contingent mind because contingent minds don't cover the scope of all logically possible worlds, right? So either it's a necessary mind or a contingent mind that covers the scope of all logically possible worlds. But since in that just disjunct we've already eliminated contingent minds, there must be a necessary mind, right, that has those intentional objects. And those intentional objects I would call propositions that are necessarily true.
You keep saying preposition when I'm assuming you mean proposition, because preposition is something completely different.
Yeah, and propositions,
but
like
the syllogism
have a truth value.
Sorry?
You got all those other words right, though, so that's funny.
In any case, the argument that you presented to the call screener was it's not. Sorry, let me check this out. If there are necessary propositions, then they exist in a necessary mind. There are necessary propositions, therefore there is a necessary mind. Is that accurate? Yeah. And my response is that it's not the proposition that is necessary, but the truth of the proposition. You're confusing the map for the place. You're confusing the concept. I'm talking here. I'm talking here. Do you want an answer or not?
Yes.
Okay, then stop talking and listen. It's not the proposition that is the necessary part, but the truth of the proposition that would be necessary. Propositions, the concepts, the abstract concepts. All right, you're done. You're done. Goodbye.
Okay.
I'm gonna go ahead and address it and explain to everybody just how completely fucking wrong you were. And now you're not even going to get a chance to respond because you couldn't stop interrupting and sit there, wait for me to finish 3 sentences. 3 sentences. It's not the proposition that is necessary, but the truth of the proposition that is necessary. The proposition exists in a mind. The truth of the proposition does not exist in a mind. If every mind in the universe ceases to exist, the proposition, the concept part of it, no longer exists. But the truth of what it pointed to continues to exist. Now, all bachelors being unmarried is a tautology because that's just a definition. But if we were to say, look at the law of identity where A equals A, what that proposition, A equals A, points to, the concept that it points to is the place. The concept is the map of the place. You're confusing the map for the place. And so no mind is necessary in order for the truth of a proposition that we're proposing or that we're entertaining to be true. It is not required that any human being or any mind ever considered whether or not A equals A or whether or not all bachelors are unmarried. What that points to is true irrespective of any mind. And even if every mind ceased to exist, all bachelors would still be unmarried, would still be a truth, in the concept that we're pointing to. So your argument as presented is flawed in a number of different ways. So we're going to move on to somebody else.